My husband had one routine he never broke. Every Thursday. Exactly 3 p.m. No excuses, ever. Didn't matter if we were in the middle of a conversation, if rain was pounding the windows, or if the house was full of guests. He'd glance at his watch, grab his keys, and walk out like he was following orders only he could hear. For 36 years of marriage, I watched him do it. Same calm face, same quiet confidence. When I finally asked where he went every week, he smiled like I was worrying for nothing. He kissed my cheek and said, "Just handling things so we're always good, Claire." That was my husband, Richard, steady, logical, a finance guy to his core. Numbers made sense to him in a way emotions never did. Our bills were paid early, credit always spotless. Retirement, he swore it was solid. I trusted him, completely, why wouldn't I? The day he died, I was folding laundry, half watching the news, annoyed at nothing in particular. My phone rang. It was my son, Mark. His voice didn't sound right, too flat, too controlled. "Mom," he said, "you need to come to the ER. Dad collapsed at work." By the time I got there, Richard was already gone. The doctor said it was a sudden heart attack. Quick, no suffering, almost merciful. At the funeral, people watched me closely, waiting for tears, waiting for me to break. I didn't. I shook hands, thanked people, accepted casseroles I never ate. Someone whispered that I must still be in shock. But that wasn't it. Beneath the grief, I felt something I couldn't explain, relief. Like a tight knot in my chest had finally loosened. I didn't understand it, and I didn't say it out loud, but it was there. 4 days after the funeral, a letter arrived. Plain envelope, no return address, my name typed neatly on the front. Inside was a notice from Ridgeway Federal Bank. It said my husband had a safe deposit box. And somehow, so did I. I stared at the paper, confused. Richard never mentioned a box, not once, not in 3.5 decades. He told me everything important, or so I thought. That night I sat alone in the quiet house, listening to the refrigerator hum, staring at that letter. Richard was careful, methodical, protective. So why did this feel wrong? Why did my stomach twist before I'd even stepped inside the bank? I thought the box held paperwork or old files. I didn't know it was holding the truth he buried for years. I didn't tell anyone about the letter at first. I folded it neatly and slid it into the kitchen drawer like it might disappear if I ignored it long enough. But it didn't. It sat there, heavy in my mind, whispering every time the house went quiet. The night before my bank appointment, my son Mark came over. He looked worn out, tie loosened, eyes red, the kind of tired you don't fix with sleep. He dropped into the chair across from me and rubbed his face with both hands. "Mom," he said, "I need to talk to you about Dad's finances." My stomach tightened. "I've been going through his office," he continued. "Some stuff doesn't make sense." He pulled out a folder and spread papers across the table. Bank statements, account numbers I'd never seen before. "Did you know Dad had more than one checking account?" "No," I said slowly. "We had one, the joint one." "That's what I thought," he said, "but there's at least 3. One account had been empty for months. Another was closed. The third had a balance that made my chest go cold. $47. "That can't be right," I said. "Our retirement alone should be 6 figures." Mark swallowed hard. "I can't find it, any of it." That night, I barely slept. I stared at the ceiling, replaying every Thursday at 3 p.m. every time Richard told me not to worry. Every time he said he had it handled. I'd believed him without question, trusted him with everything. The next morning, I dressed like I was going into a job interview I couldn't afford to fail. Navy blazer, simple makeup, armor. The bank was quiet, cold, and too bright. The manager was polite in that professional, distant way. She led me down a hallway and handed me a small metal box, then left me alone. It was heavier than I expected. I set it on the table and just stared at it for a second. 36 years of marriage sat inside that box. I opened it. Folders, neatly labeled, too neat. The first one was investments. Not our investments, his. Page after page of losses, bad calls, risky moves, money gone like it never existed. The second folder made my hands shake. Loans. Taken against our house. The third folder nearly knocked the air out of me. Credit cards. In my name. Cards I never opened. Signatures that looked like mine but weren't. Balances maxed out to the limit. This wasn't carelessness. This was deliberate. At the bottom of the box, I saw an envelope with my name written on it in Richard's handwriting. My heart started pounding before I even picked it up. I hadn't read the letter yet, but deep down I already knew. Whatever was inside was going to change how I saw my husband forever. I sat there for a long minute, just staring at that envelope. My name was written on the front in Richard's handwriting, neat, careful, controlled. The same handwriting I'd seen on birthday cards, grocery lists, and notes stuck to the fridge over the years. My hands didn't shake when I opened it. I think fear had already burned itself out. The letter started with an apology. Not a dramatic one, not emotional, very him. He wrote that 5 years ago, he made a financial decision he was absolutely sure would pay off. When it didn't, he tried to fix it. Then he tried to fix the fix. And every Thursday at 3 p.m., he went back to the bank chasing a way out. Instead, he dug the hole deeper. He admitted to the loans against the house, the credit cards in my name, the accounts he never told me about. He said he did it to buy time, that he believed he could clean it all up before I ever found out. By the time I reached the end, my chest felt hollow. He wrote that by the time I read the letter, we were probably broke, that the house might be lost, that my credit would be destroyed. He said I had every right to hate him. Then he wrote, "I loved you, that part was always real." I folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the envelope. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I didn't fall apart in the bank's little private room. I closed the box, carried it back to the counter, and looked the bank manager straight in the eye. "I need copies of everything in that box," I said, "and I need the name of a lawyer who handles financial fraud." Her eyebrows lifted slightly, but she nodded. By the time I got home, Mark's car was already in the driveway. He met me at the door, tense. "Mom, I found something else." "Let me guess," I said, setting my purse down harder than I meant to. "There's no life insurance." He froze. "How did you know?" "Because the man I married spent the last 5 years destroying everything quietly." Of course he covered all his tracks. I spread the documents across the kitchen table. Loans, cards, statements, the letter. Mark read in silence. His face went pale, then red, then pale again. "This is bad," he whispered. "Like really bad." "I know," I said, "but panic won't help. We need a plan." The lawyer's name was Alina Morales. She didn't sugarcoat anything. What Richard did wasn't just mistakes, it was fraud, identity theft, financial abuse. "But he's dead," I said quietly. "What can we even do?" She leaned forward. "We fight, and it won't be easy." That night, my daughter Lena called. She was crying before I even said hello. "You're wrong," she said. "Dad wouldn't do this. He loved you." "He did," I said softly, "and he still did this." She hung up. And that hurt more than anything I found in that box. I thought losing my husband was the worst part. I didn't realize I was about to lose my daughter too. The next few weeks felt like I'd been dropped into someone else's life. Every day was paperwork, phone calls, and new words I never wanted to learn: fraud affidavit, creditor dispute, forensic accounting. Alina moved fast, but she didn't lie to me. "This is going to get ugly," she said. "People don't like being told they were fooled." She was right. The credit card companies called first. Some were polite, some treated me like I was lying, like I was trying to dodge responsibility. "You're saying you didn't open these accounts?" one man asked, his tone sharp. "I'm saying my signature was forged," I said, "by my husband." There was always a pause after that, like they didn't know which box to put me in, victim or accomplice. Mark helped with everything. He made spreadsheets, organized files, sat beside me during calls. Some nights we stayed up until midnight, surrounded by papers, fueled by coffee and pure anger. Lena didn't call. Days passed, then weeks. When I finally reached out, she sent one text back. "I need space. I can't handle you tearing Dad down like this." That text hit harder than any bank notice. I wasn't tearing him down. I was telling the truth, but truth has a price, and apparently I was the one paying it. Money got tight fast. With accounts frozen and disputes pending, I had less than $100 in checking. I was 64 years old and applying for jobs I never thought I'd need again. Bookstores, cafes, front desks, anywhere that would take someone my age without asking too many questions. One small independent bookstore downtown called me in. The owner, Ruth, was in her early 70s, sharp eyes behind red glasses, silver hair pulled into a messy bun. She skimmed my resume and looked up. "You've been out of the workforce a while," she said. "Yes. And you're okay starting part-time." "I need something," I said honestly, "and I work hard." She studied me for a long moment, then smiled. "When can you start?" That job saved me, not financially, but mentally. 3 days a week, I shelved books, helped customers, and pretended my life wasn't falling apart for a few hours at a time. One afternoon, Ruth said something that stuck with me. "People think secrets protect relationships," she said. "They don't, they rot them." At night, alone in the house, I thought about Richard, about how much effort it must have taken to lie every week, to smile, kiss my cheek, and walk out the door at 3:00 p.m. like nothing was wrong. And I wondered how long he'd been drowning before he started pulling everyone else under with him. I thought the truth would set me free. Instead, it started taking things away, one by one. Elena called me early one morning. "We're going to court," she said. "The bank isn't backing down." I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the wall like it might give me an answer. Court wasn't something I'd ever imagined for my life, not like this, not because of the man I trusted most. "They're saying you benefited from the loans," Elena continued. "That since you lived in the house, you're responsible." Responsible. For debts I didn't know existed, for signatures I didn't write, for lies I didn't tell. The hearing was scheduled for late fall. Mark took the day off to come with me. Lena didn't. She sent a short message the night before. "I can't sit there and watch you do this to Dad." I didn't reply. I didn't know how. The courthouse was smaller than I expected. No drama. No big wooden doors like in the movies. Just metal detectors and hard benches that made everything feel painfully real. Elena laid everything out, forged signatures, separate accounts, Richard's letter admitting what he'd done. The bank's lawyer argued that I'd enjoyed the marriage, the house, the lifestyle. When it was my turn to speak, my mouth felt dry, but my voice didn't shake. "I trusted my husband," I said. "That's not the same thing as agreeing to fraud." The judge listened without reacting. Afterward, we waited in the hallway. Mark paced. Elena checked her phone. I sat still, thinking about Lena, about how losing her hurt worse than any debt ever could. When the judge finally called us back in, he didn't take long. "The evidence is clear," he said. "This debt was created through fraud without Mrs. Bennett's knowledge or consent." My knees almost gave out. The loans were void, the liens released. We won. Outside the courthouse, Mark hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. But I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired, older, like something fundamental had cracked open and would never fully close again. That night, my phone rang. It was Lena. Her voice was shaky. "Mom, I went to the bank today." My heart stopped. "I wanted to prove you were wrong," she said, "but I was." She paused. "There's a credit card in my name, $22,000. I never opened it." The silence between us said everything. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I should have believed you." I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of it all crash down at once. No, I said softly. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. I thought the truth had finally come out. I didn't realize my husband's secrets were still spreading, even after his death. Lena came over the next day. She didn't knock. She just walked in like she used to, back when this house still felt safe to all of us. Her eyes were red, her shoulders slumped, like the ground had dropped out from under her. We sat at the kitchen table, with 2 mugs of coffee we barely touched. I keep replaying everything, she said. All the times Dad told me not to worry about money, all the times he said he had it handled. I nodded, me too. She looked at me, voice breaking. How could he do this to us? I didn't have a clean answer. I think he panicked, and once you panic, you start making choices you can't undo. Alina helped Lena file fraud claims just like mine. Same process, same headaches, same disbelief from creditors who didn't want to admit they'd been played. Mark jumped in even harder. He organized documents, made calls. Went with Lena to meetings. She was too overwhelmed to face alone. One night, while we were buried in paperwork, Mark finally said something he'd been holding in. Mom, a few years back, Dad asked me to invest in something with him, a startup. He said it was a sure thing. My stomach dropped. Did you? He shook his head. No, Sarah didn't trust it. She said if it was guaranteed, he wouldn't need my money. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. I think, Mark continued quietly, he was already in trouble then. I think he was desperate. That word stuck with me. Desperate people don't think long-term. They think survival, and survival can turn ugly fast. At the bookstore, I started noticing something strange. Women lingered. They'd ask for a book, then hesitate, then lower their voices. Do you have anything about financial abuse? One woman asked, eyes darting toward the door. I showed her a few titles. Then, without planning to, I said, I've been through it too. We talked for almost an hour. When she left, she hugged me like we'd known each other for years. Ruth watched from behind the counter. You're good at that, she said later, listening. Word spread quietly. A few women came back, then a few more, same stories, different details, husbands who handled everything. Questions that were brushed off, that same uneasy feeling in the gut. Ruth and I decided to start something small, nothing official, just coffee, chairs, and a safe space after hours. The first night, 6 women showed up. I told my story, all of it. The Thursdays at 3:00 p.m. the box, the lies. No one interrupted, no one judged. For the first time since Richard died, I felt useful. I thought rebuilding meant fixing my finances. I didn't realize it meant rebuilding who I was. The little group at the bookstore kept growing. 6 women turned into 10. 10 turned into 15. We didn't advertise it. No flyers, no social posts. Word just spread the way truth always does, quietly, from one person who needed help to another. Some women came angry, some came scared. Some just sat there, arms crossed, like they weren't sure they were allowed to take up space. I recognized all of them. One night, a woman named Karen spoke up for the first time. Her hands were shaking as she held her coffee. My husband says I'm bad with money, she said, that it's easier if he handles everything. Every woman in the room went still. That's exactly what Richard used to say, I told her gently. She looked at me like I'd read her mind. After the meeting, Lena pulled me aside. I didn't know this many people lived like this, she said quietly. Neither did I said, because no one talks about it. At home, Lena and I started unpacking more than paperwork. We talked about her childhood, about how she always saw her dad as the steady one, the hero, the fixer. I feel stupid, she admitted one night, like I missed signs I should have seen. I shook my head. Trusting someone you love doesn't make you stupid. Mark stopped by later that week with news. The handwriting expert confirmed it. None of the signatures were mine, or Lena's. It should have felt like a win. Instead, it felt heavy. Because now there was no denying it. No more room for maybe or what if. The man we loved made choices that hurt everyone. A few days later, Lena got a call from the bank. "They're freezing the account," she told me, packing the living room, "until the investigation's done." She looked terrified. What if I end up with nothing? I grabbed her hands. Then we figure it out together. That night, after everyone left, I sat alone and thought about Richard. About how hard he worked to look calm while everything burned underneath. About how many chances he had to tell the truth and didn't. I realized something uncomfortable. I didn't miss the man he'd become at the end. I missed the man I thought he was. At the next support group meeting, Ruth said something that stuck with me. "You know," she said, "closure isn't about understanding why someone hurt you. It's about accepting that they did." That hit hard. Because I'd spent months trying to make sense of Richard's choices, trying to find logic in them, trying to soften them. Maybe there wasn't any. Maybe the truth didn't need explaining, just accepting. I thought accepting the truth would bring peace. I didn't realize it would force me to let go of the man I'd been holding on to. A few months passed, and life started settling into something that almost felt normal. Not easy, just steady. The bookstore became my second home. The support group met once a month now, sometimes twice if someone really needed it. Lena's fraud case was moving slowly, but it was moving. Mark went back to focusing on his kids and his job, checking in on us like clockwork. One afternoon, a woman I'd never seen before walked into the store. She looked nervous, kept glancing at the door like she was afraid someone might follow her in. She wandered the aisles for a while before finally approaching the counter. "Can I ask you something?" she said quietly. "Of course." She hesitated, then asked, "Do you have any books about financial control in marriage?" That word control told me everything. I walked her to the shelf, pulled out a few books, then paused. Something told me to say more. "Are you asking for you?" I asked gently. She nodded. "My husband handles all our money. He says I don't need to worry about it, that he's protecting me." My chest tightened. "When was the last time you actually saw the accounts?" I asked. She frowned. "I haven't ever." That was the question no one had ever asked me. I told her my story, not the long version, just enough. The Thursdays at 3 p.m., the safe deposit box, the forged signatures. Her eyes filled with tears. "I thought I was just being paranoid," she whispered. "You're not," I said. "And even if you are, checking won't hurt anything, but not checking could cost you everything." She came back to the next support group meeting. So did two more women she told. That night, as I listened to their stories, something clicked. This wasn't just about what Richard did to me. It was about how many of us were taught that love meant stepping back, staying quiet, not asking questions, letting someone else be in charge. At home later, I pulled out an old photo album. There was a picture of me from years ago, before marriage, before kids, smiling, confident, independent. I barely recognized her. That version of me didn't hand her power over so easily. The next day, I went to a different bank, one Richard had never stepped foot in. I opened a new account. In my name only. When the teller asked if I wanted to use my married name, I paused. "No," I said, "use my maiden name." It felt strange and powerful. I walked out with a checkbook that belonged to me, not the wife, not the widow, not the aftermath. Just me. I thought changing my name was symbolic. I didn't realize it would change how I saw myself. The more I stepped into my own life again, the more I realized how much of it I'd handed over without noticing. Decisions, money, silence. I used to think that was just marriage, compromise, trust, teamwork. But standing on the other side of everything, it looked different. It looked like I'd slowly shrunk myself so someone else could feel bigger. The support group kept growing. Some nights we laughed, some nights we cried, some nights nobody talked much at all, and that was okay too. Healing isn't loud. Most of the time it's quiet and awkward and slow. One evening, A younger woman named Tessa stayed behind after everyone else left. My husband says I'm dramatic when I ask questions, she said, that I'm ruining the peace. That phrase, ruining the peace, hit me right in the chest. I used to hear that too, I told her. Here's the thing nobody tells you, peace that only exists because you're silent isn't peace, it's control. She nodded like something finally made sense. At home, Lena's case took a turn. 2 of her fraudulent accounts were officially removed from her credit report. She cried when she told me, the kind of crying that comes after holding it together too long. I feel lighter, she said, like I can breathe again. I smiled, but inside I felt something else too. Pride. Not just in her, in us, in the fact that we didn't let the lie win. Mark stopped by one afternoon with his kids. Watching them run through the house, laughing, made me think about legacy. What do we pass down when we don't talk about the hard stuff? That night, after everyone left, I sat at the kitchen table and wrote something down, not numbers, not legal notes, but rules. My rules. I wrote. I ask questions. I see the accounts. I don't trade comfort for clarity. Silence is not love. It felt strange, writing rules for a life I was already living. But I'd learned the hard way, if you don't define your boundaries, someone else will. Later that week, Ruth poured us each a glass of cheap wine after closing. You know, she said, you didn't just survive this, you changed it. Changed what? I asked. The ending, she said. Your story could have ended with loss, instead it keeps going. I thought about that on the walk home. Maybe this wasn't the life I planned. But it was the one I chose. I thought my story was finally settling down. I didn't realize the last chapter would be the most important one. On what would have been our 37th wedding anniversary, I went to the bank. Not the one Richard used, not the one tied to secrets and locked boxes, a different one, clean slate, no history. I stood in line with my paycheck from the bookstore folded in my purse. It wasn't much, but it was mine, every dollar of it. When the teller asked if there was anything else she could help me with, I smiled. No, I said, this is perfect. I walked out of that building feeling lighter than I had in years. Not because everything was fixed, not because the pain was gone, but because for the first time in a long time, my life belonged to me again. The support group celebrated its 1-year anniversary that same week. 23 women sat in a circle behind the bookstore, different ages, different stories, same thread running through all of them. They trusted someone who broke that trust. I told them the truth. When my husband died, I said, I thought my life was over. In a way, it was, the life I thought I had ended with him. But something else started. I told them about the Thursdays at 3 p.m., the safe deposit box, the lies, the anger, the court, losing my daughter for a while, getting her back, losing myself and finding her again. One woman asked, how did you stay strong? I laughed softly. I didn't, I cried, I panicked, I wanted to quit. I just kept moving forward anyway. After the meeting, a young woman pulled me aside. My husband handles all our money, she said. He says I don't need to worry about it. I took her hands. Ask questions, I said. Look at the accounts. Love doesn't mean blindness, it means respect. A month later, she came back with documents. Her husband had lost $80,000 in crypto. She filed for divorce the next week. She told me she was terrified and free. Lena's credit was eventually cleared. Mark set up college funds for his kids that no one but him could touch, and me. I stayed at the bookstore, kept the group going, kept choosing myself. If you're reading this and something feels off, trust that feeling. If someone tells you asking questions means you don't love them, that's a lie. Love doesn't hide. Love doesn't control. Love doesn't demand silence. I lost almost everything. But the person who tried to erase me didn't succeed. I'm still here. And if I could rebuild from that, so can you. If this story hit close to home, don't scroll past it. Someone else needs to hear this, and it might save them years of silence.